What fancy.
Yes, very nice.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh.
All right, well, hello, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. If this will move. There we go. All right, thought we'd start with the usual introductions. That'll go quickly this evening since you know each other. But for those who watch the video, they may not.
Hey,
And let me just say again, we've had several people reach out to me and tell me they're watching on the website and even getting CEUs for their CGMP and CMP. So,
yeah,
and CAE even, yeah.
Yeah, I heard from 2 people who couldn't make it tonight too. We told them we were recording, so. All right, I'm Stephen Hall, the current president of SGMP, and I work for the Florida State Court System.
I can't hardly hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Gabrielle. I am vice president of SGMP and I am a meeting planner. And I also have a business and a nonprofit organization that serves people with disabilities.
Hey everyone, I am James Moran, former president, and I'm just glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And Finn is happy you're here too. My dog is all he's making the rounds, showing everybody love here. Let's go.
Hi guys. Stephen, when you talk, because you're on mute, you sound far away.
Okay.
Just FYI. And yeah, I was gonna say with Moran, when you were talking, I could hear an echo because Dr. Gabrielle had her mic on, so we're gonna have to figure it out. Hi, but nonetheless, after I got all that out of the way, I'm Latrell, an independent insurance adjuster, and I'm too happy to be here. Sounds like I'll be moving into some positions here with SGMP sometime in the near future. It's a secret. So that's all I have to say for now.
All right, thank you. And do let us know if you start hearing an echo. We're going to try to remember to round robin with our mics so that we are not going to cause too much of a disruption and everybody can hear everybody else. For those watching on the recording, you're missing a wonderful puppy companion and some nice Cabernet. So, you know, little extra motivation for next month. We may not always be where there's going to be a puppy, but you know, if you can be around one, you should. So, well, I want to take a few minutes now to just hear from any of you who either you were or you have colleagues or family and friends who were impacted by Hurricane Ian, as well as anything you know about some venues and suppliers who were impacted and what that has, if it's having an immediate impact on meetings that you have planned or that you had in process. So I'll turn that over to whomever would like to have something to share.
I have a few friends who lost their homes, and I am unsure of the venue situation, but I know that Sanibel is one of my favorite places on earth, and I have had a bunch of meetings there, and I'm sure that it's down for the count for quite a while as in terms of any venues there. They've very quickly got the infrastructure up and running again with that bridge, but I just can't even imagine. It's heartbreaking every time I see the video and the photos of the devastation. And then knowing personally, I know 3 friends who lost their homes and others who sustained quite a bit of damage. So, but thankfully everybody I know so far anyway is okay physically.
Same here. Everybody that I know, they've had some damage, but nobody there was no loss of life, no, you know, serious injuries or anything, just, you know, the devastation of that area. And even folks who were far away had plenty of impacts. I know we had an event scheduled for next week at the Sanibel Marriott. Obviously that was, we canceled it. And we canceled it even when we couldn't reach the sales folks because we had to do things on our end, which is something we can talk about in a few minutes when we get into the discussion. But, you know, we had things to do on our end that we had to go ahead and take care of and notify people. So we had to send those notices knowing that the sales folks and others would not be able to get our messages probably for several days. I don't know about many venues down there specifically. I know the Santa Marriott did have some damage. It was not catastrophic. It is something that they are going to recover from. One of our staff was able to talk to one of the sales managers and found that they had been able to be on site, and that the main thing was there was mud everywhere inside. And so it's going to be a lot of, the expected renovation, where they're going to have to redo drywall and carpet and flooring and paint and all that sort of thing. But it was not, the devastation where some things were just completely wiped away, or that the structure was so badly compromised. Now, they, of course, will have to do structural testing and all that sort of thing. And there may be something that's hidden, but what they could see visually, it looked like they would be able to, it was going to take some time, obviously, but they would be able to reopen. And it did not appear that there were any major structural issues. But of course, you need an engineer to determine that. But and that obviously has caused us, I know for our meetings and stuff, that we're thinking of stuff that we normally don't book quite as far out, that, well, there's so many venues in the Southwest Florida area that were impacted. Some are going to reopen in a few months. Some it's going to take a year. Some it's going to take 2 years. Some may never reopen. But that's going to take a whole hundreds, thousands of meetings over the next year, and they're going to shuffle elsewhere, meaning that it's going to be harder for us to find the venues and the other places that we normally visit. And so that's something that we've started taking a look at and trying to map out at least all of next year, so that the events that we don't already have something booked through 2023, that we go ahead and get on the books, because we expect that as folks start doing the same thing, some of the venues that we may, even ones we have longstanding relationships with and good set rates that almost never change, well, they're going to be getting so much additional business that it's going to be hard to get in there. So we're trying to go ahead and by Thanksgiving have as much as possible on the calendar and booked, and with contracts either in progress or in place, because the Hurricane Ian, it's going to impact that area for many years to come, but certainly the meetings industry, it's going to impact pricing and availability throughout most of the rest of Florida for easily another year, if not longer, depending on, some of the venues. So I don't know if anybody else has had similar thoughts or experiences or preparations yet.
Venue that you had to cancel with, did they end up following back up with you? Were they able to?
Yeah, we heard from they were able to email a few days later. They responded and said they understood. And then we were able to talk to one of the sales managers a few days after that, where they had heard from folks who had gone in there and seen the venue itself. And they said that as far as they knew, even like the hotel staff displaced people with personal property damage, but no loss of life that they knew of, at least at that point. We haven't talked to them in easily a week, but because at this point there's nothing for us to do other than, hey, we're nosy, we want to know. We figure we'll follow up with them in a few months to see what their progress is and what the plans are for reopening, because it's a great venue, that whole area, and we definitely want to go back. But the Santa Marriott's right there. You turn off right before you get on the bridge, and so that whole road area was badly damaged. So that alone, we knew, even if the hotel by some miracle was able to be unscathed, just the transportation infrastructure, there's no way we could have something there in a month. So we're looking forward to hearing back from them and others. Anybody who ends up watching this recording later, if you've got stories to share, from things, please do share with us. Anybody have any other things from the hurricane?
Well, I don't have anything from the hurricane, but I do remember when COVID hit, I was planning our National Alumni Association conference or convention, if you will. And then we had to bring things to a halt. So it was a question, by some of these suppliers, because COVID was new, it was extremely different, and some were unsure if it fell in the area of force majeure. Of course it did. And so we did have some challenges, actually some legal challenges when it came to this. Yes, the hotel did not want to get out of the contract or allow us to get out of the contract, but we actually prevailed because of COVID. It was rough. It took a couple of months for us to be able to get out of that particular contract, but eventually we did. We did come back to the city. It was actually here in Tallahassee. I won't mention the hotel, but once we came back in this year, in 2022, the suppliers made good on with assisting us in many different areas. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was a challenging time. All right, anybody have anything else before we go into the discussion? Latrell? All right, well, and I do mean this is a discussion. I've got some slides to kind of go through just so we kind of touch on a few high points, but anybody who has anything to share, war stories, examples, or other, feel free to jump in and chime in as you like. All right. When you have to cancel, and that's what I kind of mentioned that a few minutes ago, is you've got all kinds of things that are just running through your mind of what you need to do. What are your options? You know, are there going to be cancellation fees? What's going to happen to your participants? Is there an option to reschedule? You know, how are you going to be able to deal with your presenters, exhibitors if you have to? You know, what sort of refunds are you going to have to give on top of having to pay cancellation fees? You know, is there some sort of partial performance that either you or the venue could do? You know, do you have insurance that will cover this, that will cover your losses? Because the losses could be significant depending on what you're planning and what your fallbacks are. Typically, at least in my government experience, we have looked at 3 different areas. We've looked at cancellation, force majeure, and impossibility. In cancellation, we're all sort of used to some form of a version of this. You know, it'll look different depending on who you are, but it, you know, has a set amount that if you cancel by this date, you owe this much. If another date, you owe a little bit more. Another date, you owe more. And at a point, you owe 100% of the revenue. And it might be room revenue, as is the case here. It might be food and beverage, meeting space. That can be a dramatically significant number depending on your event and venue. You know, easily, you know, get you in 6 figures without much of a question at all. So, but typically that's, you know, we're all used to some form of cancellation, and depending on your clause, you have different rights. This is more of an example of just, we canceled because we decided to cancel for any reason. You don't have to really give a reason. This is the standard for this. In government, we also have a standard cancellation in there for non-appropriation. So if our appropriation goes away that would have spent that funds, or, you know, the legislature calls for budget reductions during an existing fiscal year, then that is a way that we may have to cancel. And typically in that clause, we don't pay any sort of cancellation fee. And then there may be where we also have a right to cancel that would be based off of either, you call it non-performance of the hotel. You know, say that they're not supposed to do any sort of renovations, we're supposed to have quiet enjoyment, but we learn, you know, that a couple of weeks before the event, they're undergoing, you know, a major renovation of a building or of the road or parking lot of stuff that would cause an extreme inconvenience. And that's another way that we might cancel. Thankfully, you know, knock on wood, you know, this is, we, at least in my experience with my organization, we have, I can count on 1 or 2 fingers, really, the number of times that we've had to cancel that wasn't the cause of something else, that we just pure out canceled an event. Occasionally, though, we have had to pay, just like we just had to actually recently, the attrition, because of other things going on, we didn't quite meet our room block. But that's a whole other that's a whole other clause in discussion. We're currently going back and forth with that property who just gives us a number, a dollar amount, says this is what you owe in attrition. And actually, no, they didn't give us a dollar amount. They gave us a dollar amount that said, here's how much you owe. That includes meeting space, AV, and your attrition. It's like, no, we need more detail. And then they said, well, here's your AV and meeting room. You subtract that from the total. This is your attrition amount. Have you dealt with government accountants? That will not cut it. So we're just going back and forth with them to where we've got to have here's the exact number of room nights per night and the rate. We've got to be able to show, an auditor that. So that's something where, sometimes you've got a property who's not dealt with government before. And, outside of government, you still have many, associations and such that they still have those accounting standards. We're not, private businesses that can just write a check and not really worry about it and don't have to account, quite the same. But that's another thing you may have to deal with, kind of tangential to cancellation. You made the decision not to cancel because of how much that cancellation cost would be, and just realize you're going to eat the attrition amount. This is more kind of a typical force majeure clause, and I will be the first to tell you these next few slides, this one isn't as bad. Some of the others, I broke all the cardinal rules about how much text to put on a screen, how big to put it, that sort of thing. But I wanted to give you some examples. We'll provide the slides so that you can have that and see them. So just going out there, I know I broke the rules, but it's just so you can kind of get an example. But I think this is what most of us are looking at when some form of a version of this is how many folks do a force majeure. Now, there are others that do it differently. Usually, a lot of folks put it down to basically an act of God. The main thing there is it's out of your control. Now, we had some, we didn't always have due to government regulations, domestic terrorism, disaster, et cetera. Obviously, some of those kind of incurred after 9/11. That we added domestic terrorism in there. We have some form of disaster has pretty much always been in ours, but we added declared pandemic early on, right as we were getting sight of COVID, and then and the same thing for the curtailment of travel. That was one of the first things we added in there. But we found this to us still for our use, we didn't really like this. It wasn't quite there. Here's another example. It's a little bit wordier. And again, the more examples you can put in there, the better. It shows, more, it helps you in your legal case, should you ever have to go there, which again, knock on wood, we've not had the issue that you had where we had to go to a legal battle over any cancellations that we had to do during COVID or otherwise. So that part has helped. Do any of you have any examples or issues or thoughts or past experience from force majeure or cancellation? Okay, well, I want to go back before I move on to what we did next and point out something we did here. We added a number of years ago, started adding in a provision that if the hotel cancels the agreement on us, the penalty on them. We had that happen to us one time and never again. And that happened, I want to say in 2004. That hotel is still blacklisted. We've had people who said they want to go there, and we said, no, we will not visit. If you want to stay there when you're in the area, or even if you're on a work trip, but we are not holding an event there because the owner of that property, we had a nice contract. They were going to make, probably a good $200,000 between our meeting stuff and the hotel revenues from room and all that. Well, there was a sports star who they knew wanted to have their wedding there and was going to bring in several more six figures than we were. And so the owner made the call to cancel us. And we were a month out from our event and got canceled. So that was, and they didn't even help us, So we started putting in provisions like this And it takes some hotels the first time they see it. Sometimes they're like, wait, what? Like, it's fair play. If we cancel on you and we pay you, we want the same thing. If you cancel on us, we need to have some protection. The only other time we've had a venue cancel, it was somewhat similar, where there were deeper pockets coming in, and our event was scheduled at the same time as the other event at this particular property, and it's one we had never been to before. And the other event saw that they were going to need to double their size, and they were going to have much deeper pockets. However, the owners made the decision, but they also went a step further and said, we have already talked to the property just down the street that is just as nice, and in our opinion, a little bit better. And they made 100%, they transferred all the reservations. They took care of everything for us. We didn't have to do anything. This is a particular program where we have a semi-trailer where there are simulators in there for simulating driving. And so we had to have a place to park a semi-trailer where we could securely and safely bring people from the meeting space right into that without a very long walk. So they worked all that out with the other venues. So it's like, okay, we were not upset. You know, we were a little upset, but we took it fine. We actually had a great time at the other venue. We are not by any means not going to ever go to the other venue again, but the one we got moved to, we had such a good experience with their staff. We went, okay, you know, we've already booked with them again since then. So you can have two very different types of treatment. And I don't know if part of that treatment was because we had a clause in here that they would have had to pay us, I think, close to 6 figures if they canceled on us. But, you know, it probably didn't hurt in the negotiation phase there. What we have tried to move to, at least, like I said, with the courts, is we tend to shy away from going with a straightforward force majeure clause, and we go with impossibility of performance. And our standard impossibility, particularly from meeting rooms. See what y'all are missing for not being here. But it's a rather lengthy clause. It goes over the next 3 slides, but it goes into all sorts of unforeseeable things that essentially just make it, if there's any reason that we cannot, go there, and it could be something through the CDC, and of course we went into declared pandemics, and if there are jurisdictions that make it difficult for folks to attend, as well as if there's any sort of declaration of a state of emergency of any kind in or near that venue before and after, that would make it difficult. And then, that we would agree to, notify as soon as possible, et cetera, et cetera. So like I said, I'm not going to read all of that, but that's kind of where we went to with ours. It's a much more comprehensive and goes well beyond your standard force majeure. And we have not had any hotels who have balked at it. We've had a couple that we've just walked them through it. And, we may have massaged it once or twice, but for the most part, we have not had anybody come in, complain, just outright refuse to it. The other thing that we often put in there that I didn't put in an example here, and it's usually when we put it in our cancellation clause. And it doesn't always work for our bigger stuff, but for our stuff where we're talking 20 to 50 people, sometimes 100 folks, we put in a rescheduling clause that says that if we rebook an event of equal or greater size within the next, and we usually try to go for 12 months. Sometimes they want it in the same fiscal year, same calendar year. We're flexible on that. But that way, we, in lieu of canceling, we will reschedule. And it works very well for some of the smaller stuff. So, if you've got, so if you've got, a 40, 50 person, event, that's, at least in my world, that's something we're going to have 4 or 5 times a year. So it's easy to rebook that so that I know, oh, hey, I got somebody else who's coming up over here. Or we'll often say, and we've always had the hotels pretty much agree to say, all right, I have 3 groups that I want to combine into, one set. So that has often served us very, very well when it comes to these types of clauses. But those have been my experiences in doing it. Like I said, during COVID, we did have to, particularly as it went on. When it first started, we thought, okay, we'll cancel everything through October. Then as we're approaching August and September, we're thinking, okay, we can have our event in October, maybe, maybe not. Then another wave comes through. And so we had several cycles where we signed there's one time where we signed a contract and 2 weeks later we had to cancel it. But we thought things were going okay. We thought we'd be able to do it. And then, that was, I think the Omicron wave hit and some other stuff was going on. So, we got a little bit shy of trying to reschedule them for a little while there. But I know for the most part, our events are full steam ahead at this point.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have a
Oh,
little
no.
technical with this. I can't find it. I found a manual for it and I can't find the box.
Well, like I said, those have been my experiences. Anybody has anything else they want to share, clauses they've used or issues they've had with these types of clauses with hotels?
I think that it's a great idea to have your clause, if a hotel canceled. I think about that has happened to me before, not me personally, but one of the organizations that I was a part of that, I remember it was for a football game and we were in the Orlando area for the Florida Classic. And because the football team were bringing in a greater dollar value, just like you mentioned, we were then canceled from that experience, from that hotel. And so we had to scramble to find another host hotel. But had we had that clause, your clause that you had, they would have probably second guessed that opportunity. And I think it's good to, if you can share with us that template, that we could possibly use, going forward. That's a great idea. Of course, marking out or blacking out the name of any organization. But I think that is an awesome idea to have.
Well, I'll share the slides, and I don't think there's any names mentioned in here. There might be at one place, but yeah, and this is kind of, on our, if the hotel cancels, this is just one version of it, that you can use. It all depends on, and I don't know how you all do it. We prefer that the hotel gives us the overall terms and conditions, and then we put it in our template. And then this is an example of where it was the hotel's template, because some of them they have, no, you must use ours. And it's like, okay, give it to me in a editable format. Half the time they say, oh, we're not able to do that. And I'm like, that's okay. I can rip a PDF to Word. I'll give it to you. I'll make it editable, and then you can see the changes I have to make. So, that's also another fun thing in dealing with a hotel that's never dealt with government before. It's like, I cannot agree to, this version of what you're doing. So, but yeah, I'll share this so you have these examples there. They're, freely usable, and you can find more online of what will work. And it's all going to depend on what's going to work for your particular event. I think there are some things that, some organizations can get away with that others can't. If you're trying to book 20 rooms, then you may not ever book 20 rooms or more than that ever again at that property. And it's a property with 500 rooms, that doesn't have quite as much leeway. But if you're talking to them about starting the relationship and that you might be booking 2 or 3 times a year there, or, once a year with a bigger group, they're a little more amenable. And I know from a negotiation perspective, I often try to do that, to where it's like, okay, we're going to try out for this, but we also have an eye for this other event. Or go ahead and do one contract that covers 2 or 3 events, or multiple years of the same event. You get much better rates, with that. We've got one property that we deal with, and probably 30 to 40% of what we do in the Orlando area is at this one property, just because they have our contract, they use our exact contract. All they do is basically we just change the name of the meeting, the number of people, the dates, and the meeting rooms. They have got a package set up for, here's our food and beverage package, and it's already kind of a set, like, okay, this is the salad day, this is the this day, this is the this day when we're doing food and beverage. So it's great when you can have that relationship, built with them. They don't get everything by any means, but that is where, we can go reliably and have that. Again, the stuff we don't already have on the books with them that we want for next year, we're going to reach out to try to work on, because I'm afraid, as others start trying to book, they're gonna book up for a while. But it is certainly something to look at, and that's, we've already discussed. We may end up looking. We don't normally do as many events in the Panhandle, and it just has to do with travel. When you've got folks who are traveling from Pensacola all the way from Key West, it's usually easier to meet in Tampa or Orlando centrally, because it's easier for them to hop a flight. Everybody else drives. But somebody going from Key West, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, trying to go to a meeting in Panama City, well, we'd love to do that. It's just, you all of a sudden have several people that are over $1,000 in travel costs, trying to get there in a solid day of trying to get there. So anyway, anybody have anything, other experiences or thoughts from cancellation, force majeure, possibility related war story? All right. Anybody have any announcements or other things they want to talk about as events coming up? Anything for the good of the order? I know I saw a save the date for Visit Orlando's event in December. I want to say that's Wednesday or a Thursday. On the
Wednesday, December 7th, I think it was. That's the same date when we should be having our information.
And you said December?
It is December 7th.
December 7th.
Okay, where is it?
It's usually at Goodwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I got that. I haven't seen where.
Send that out.
Yeah, I'll go through and share that because it's through Visit Orlando. They do a big event there where they bring in, usually it's about 15 or so properties, sometimes more, that are all represented there. So it's usually a very nice, well-attended event.
To be well attended.
That's the only one I have seen, but I'm not on all the lists, so to speak. So if anybody learns of anything else that would be an open, we can certainly share it. Does anybody know anything about the big association group, if they've got a big holiday thing planned? FSAE? Yeah, FSAE.
Yeah, FSAE is bigger than ever. They just had a big trade show, Education Day, and they always have a holiday event. So I don't know the details of it yet. Latrell, do you ever get over to Tallahassee, or do you have anything exciting going on in Jacksonville?
Oh, I get over to Tallahassee quite a bit. I'll be there next week for Family's homecoming. But other than the Jaguars, I'm not, winning lately. There's all that's going on over here in Jacksonville. But yeah, I do get to Tallahassee fairly a few times a year. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is someone talking?
Yeah, sorry, I was just telling him to prop up his phone so he didn't have to hold it like that.
Oh, okay, because all of a sudden everything went blank.
I know.
Didn't hear anyone. Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying, I was trying to see when, if FSAE had announced their December stuff yet, and all they have on their website now is power. So want to keep an eye out for that because one of the upcoming events we have listed is a December social. And I certainly don't want to schedule it on the 7th, since we know that's a big event that's very well attended, will draw some folks. And our normal time period is probably a little too close to Christmas for many. So gonna try to reach out to a few folks, see about some dates, and try to pick something in there to do that. For November, the plan was trying to look at doing something related to utilizing CVB. The CVB I had talked to, Experience Kissimmee, they cannot do that date, but she's going to look at a date sometime next year. I've got a call with Janet over at Visit Tallahassee on Friday, I think. And I'm going to talk to her to see if there's something they might be able to do, and maybe pull in one more. So maybe get Visit Tallahassee and somebody else, just to give us an experience, an idea there. Like, I don't, for my purposes, I rarely use CVBs. And for many of them, there isn't a lot of benefit there because I'm not doing, we rarely do food and beverage. We have just a few occasions where we can kind of with a third party, but we're not doing excursions. We're not doing a lot of the things that sometimes they can really help you with. But I don't know what I don't know. So I think it would be beneficial for myself and others to learn that. I went with Experience Kissimmee at first because I do work with them. They have a great room night benefit that if you include them with your RFPs, that you get, I want to say it's currently $4 for every actualized room night. And we work with them, one of the first government groups to work with them, to where normally they give you the money. Government, I can't take your money. It's very difficult for me to take money. So we got them to give the money to the hotel, and the hotel puts it as credit on our master account. And so we've successfully worked with them for several years on that, and have tried to talk to some others to do something similar, because when you're dealing with a government group, that's easier to, very few accountants question, oh, you've got a nice big credit here. Okay, good. We like a credit. Versus here's a check that we've got to try to deposit and kind of as a refund towards something. And but hopefully she said she's going to look at the calendar, see what they can do sometime next year. But still between Janet and another CVB, hopefully we can have something there in November that we stick with that topic, December social. And we want to try to do something about incorporating volunteer and community service in January. Sometimes it depends on your event. You can incorporate a service day before or after, or some component. It may be something as simple as just providing information, but want to try to engage one or two customer service volunteer type entities to get them to tell us how we could incorporate that into our events. So they're in January. And then we don't have a suggested topic for February yet, but hopefully we'll keep moving forward and work on that. But those are the kind of next meetings, the dates and the topics we're working towards, so that we can have that actualized. We can continue to talk once we end the meeting and go off the official recording. Is there anything else for the meeting before we end the recording? All right. Well, for those of you who end up watching this later, we hope you can join us in November. We do plan for that to again be a hybrid meeting. The December social will be in person. Not planning to do a hybrid function of that. Unless you're a good friend, then maybe we'll FaceTime you in, but just for a minute. We haven't discussed about January, but unless things change, I think we kind of were hoping towards in next year moving towards primarily in-person meetings, but we certainly will keep all of our options open. Yeah.
So I can, yeah, I think we should continue hybrid so people like Latrell can continue to stay involved, and we do have a lot. Yeah, we want to have her here, and we definitely have some other people who I talked to. We had more responses on the survey as well. And it looks like most people are in favor of having both options. So it's not that hard as long as we have good Wi-Fi to also have a connection. So.
Well, if we are going to continue that, totally open to it. Well, let's, you know, make it an additional thing to kind of work on is try to figure out either a different camera setup. So we're not necessarily, you know, 3 or 4 separate devices. If we get 5 or 6, 7 people in the room, it gets much, you know, more unwieldy, or like we're in a room that's not set up like this. You know, we're meeting
at an event, I could even hear right now, we could not be on ours and we could just all be there.
Yeah.
You know? So that it's definitely doable. I've done a lot here with them.
Yeah, I was thinking more if we start going to other venues, and if they don't have the setup already, then you've got to plan ahead for it. So that's all I'm saying is it will just plan ahead for those types of things as we start moving to other venues.
Sounds good. We just need to get a venue for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and end the recording. Thanks to everyone who attended and listened in. And Latrell, feel free to stick around and we can keep chatting.